0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. Ian Dale at Drive on LBC.
Hello, a very good evening to you. I'm Ian Dale at Drive, leading Britain's conversation here on LBC. If you look on the LBC website now, you can see us, lbc.co.uk. We are going to broadcast the next 45 minutes on the website. Just click on the link, because Ian McCafferty from the Bank of England, from the Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee, is here to take your calls. Lots to talk to him about. Maybe David Cameron's warning yesterday of a global financial crash. What about the prospect for UK interest rates? Are they going to go up anytime soon? And what about the UK inflation rate? It's risen today to 1.3%. What should we take from that? 0345 6060 973. Well, Ian, welcome back. There's never a dull moment on sort of economic news, is there? People think of economics as a fairly dry subject, but at the moment it's an absolutely fascinating subject.
Oh, I think we live in what they call very interesting times. I think at one stage, one of the central bank governors, now retired, called the time prior to the crisis the Great Moderation. I think we've long gone beyond that, and as you say, it's very interesting.
And you are, of course, one of the two rebels on the Monetary Policy Committee. You have voted, certainly in the past couple of months, for an interest rate rise, along with your colleague Martin Wheel.
That's right. Both of us started to vote for an immediate increase of 25 basis points, 0.25%, starting in August. And we've been voting consistently like that ever since.
Any harsh words, banging of tables, sort of pointing of fingers? Is that what goes on at Monetary Policy Committee meetings?
Just the opposite. We now have, of course, two women on the committee, but I will say, without being sexist, that we're a very gentlemanly committee. The press like to make out that it's gladiatorial combat, but actually things are conducted very openly, and we try and play the ball, not the man.
Or woman.
Or woman.
Right, let's go to the first call. Tiki is in Hornchurch. Hello, Tiki.
Hello, Ian, and hello, Ian.
Hi.
A question to Mr. McCafferty. With all what's going on, would it be in favour of more laws and legislation, or indeed clearer legislation, to ensure that bad bankers, as it were, face imprisonment if they breach these laws?
I think the short answer is yes, I would. The question is exactly how would one define those laws in order to catch all of the potential bad behaviour that you can imagine. I mean, I think as the governor of the Bank of England has said, and I agree with him wholeheartedly, what the bankers in the Forex scandal did was absolutely despicable. And I think it is not sufficient simply to fine institutions. We have to go after those that actually carry out the bad behaviour as well. And that's why the bank has started a review, not specifically of individuals, but of the system. And is the system set up correctly? Are laws correctly drafted such that we can catch and punish these individuals?
Yeah.
I mean, the issue here, it seems to me, that surely there are already laws that these people can be dealt with under. I mean, fraud laws, for example. What again, as an innocent in these things, to me, if you try and rig a market, that is a form of fraud. So why can't they be arrested and tried on existing laws?
Well, I think in some cases they can. I think there is an issue with the foreign exchange market in this particular case, and I'm not a lawyer, so I can't quote you chapter and verse, but I think there are questions about quite whether what they did is captured by existing fraud law or not. And if it isn't, and that's one of the questions that the Fair and Effective Markets Review that at the bank is undertaking at the moment, if it isn't covered by existing law, then it needs to be.
When you first heard about this latest scandal, the foreign exchange scandal, what was the reaction within the bank? Because I think everyone else thought, "Oh, not again! What else can we? What else are we going to discover about the banking sector?" Just when you thought maybe things were on the way up again, this comes along.
Well, I think I had the same reaction as everyone else, surprised that that bankers had been caught out yet again carrying on in this sort of way. Particularly as the Forex scandal was not something of history. It's actually of quite recent occurrence. So you could say, well, had bankers learnt from the early days of the crisis? Clearly not all of them had. So I think a great deal of disappointment and shock.
Do you think there is a case for a banker's conduct law, that is aimed at specifically the financial community, not just bankers, but anyone in the financial community? You behave in this way, and this will happen to you. So it's kind of, you have the law of the land, but you also have a separate law, just as there are in other areas.
I think the difficulty, and it's not that I would be against such a thing if it could be designed properly, the difficulty is actually specifying how it would work in practice, because either you have something that is very broad, but that means it has to be very unspecific in order to catch anything that people can think of to do in nefarious purposes at some stage, but that then means that there is a question mark as to whether it does capture particular behaviour after the fact, and you have to try through courts to get so. Or you have to specify in advance everything that you can possibly think of that people do wrong and list that, and that becomes extremely difficult, and all that happens then is that people work out what is covered and work on ways to get around the rules.
Tiki, what would you like to see happen?
Well, as I say, there's too many loopholes, it's too loose. I mean, in the old days, as someone said yesterday, there was dignity and morals and all the rest of it. All that's gone by the by, obviously, because of, I don't know, whatever it is, standards have dropped. And there's got to be more clearer laws that allow someone to make a comment, because their comments could influence the market here, there, and everywhere. And as I say, too many loopholes, and it should be clearer. Otherwise, people can't be or indeed put in prison for it,
OK, thank you very much. 0345 6060 973. That's the number to call if you'd like to talk to Ian McCafferty. He sits on the Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee. How many members of the committee are there, Ian?
There are 9.
And
5
how are you appointed? I mean, who decides who's going to be on it?
Well, of the 9 members, there are 5 that come from, as it were, inside the bank. The governor of the bank, 3 deputy governors, and one executive director who is also the chief economist of the bank. And 4 of us are appointed from outside by the chancellor. So the 4 of us that come from the outside actually report to Parliament.
And what role does Mark Carney play? Does he just chair it, or does he sort of impose his views?
Oh, he doesn't impose his views. Otherwise, we would never have contradictory voting systems. We do run a system in which each of the 9 members has an equal vote.
But I mean, there are different ways of chairing things. John Major, when he was Prime Minister, would let everyone have their say. He'd sum up, whereas Margaret Thatcher would give her opinion and basically tell them, right, this is the way it's going to be.
Well, it's more of the former than the latter. I mean, Mark has a vote,
I thought you might say that.
And he has strong views, his interpretation of how the economy is working, which he is prepared to put forward. But at the same time, he chairs a vote, a group of 9 independent people.
OK, let's go to Patrick in Coulston. Hi, Patrick.
Hello, good evening, Ian and Ian. Aside from my point, I kind of find it astonishing that we aren't talking about a professional a code of conduct, because that's all you really need for any professional body to, in effect, do what it's mandated to do. My question actually was: do you feel that there is any correlation between the relationships that are formed between politicians and financial industries and our reticence to take any of these to impose any punitive legislation for the individuals that have caused the failings in the financial world?
I think the answer to that must be no. I don't believe that in some ways politicians are more reluctant to tackle wrongdoing in the banking sector, and there's some sort of conduct or some sort of relationship between them that kicks that off. No, I think politicians are fully independent and would dearly love to be able to control the banking sector rather more than they've been able to in the past. The difficulty, as I say, and it's not that I'm against codes of conduct, the difficulty is how do you draft them to catch people in the future when these are quite clever people and will be looking for such loopholes and so on. So it's not that we shouldn't have one, but it's going to take a little bit of time and a good deal of effort in order to draw up one that really does capture some of this nefarious behaviour.
But of course, go ahead.
Can I query? Yeah, can I query the amount of the level of remuneration for these so-called experts in their field? I don't have an understanding as to why, when it comes to looking inward, it's considered difficult. I couldn't tell you how the stock market works because it would be too complicated for me. Now, somebody that has a grasp of that level of complexity, I'm sorry, should also be able to draft basic standard rules of what is appropriate and what is not appropriate and what should be legislated against.
Fair point, isn't it?
I think it is a fair point, and I think we are well, not only the bank, but a number of bodies are now starting to look at that. Essentially, the policeman in the banking sector is not the Bank of England at all. So what I'm saying is a personal view and the view of the bank, but the Financial Conduct Authority, which is a separate body based in Canary Wharf, is, as it were, the policeman for the banking sector.
Toothless,
and they're working.
though. Toothless.
Well,
compared to the American equivalent.
It's a new young body, and it's still finding its feet and developing itself.
Well,
and I think it is a difficult area, but I think ultimately what we have to say is we should not have to rely only on statute law, looking to the lawyers and the politicians to draft laws to capture this stuff. It is up to the banks to promote the right conduct amongst their employees, and that, I think, is an area where we need to look for improvement too.
OK, Patrick, thank you for that. Much more from Ian over the course of the next half an hour. You can, of course, watch us on the website lbc.co.uk. If you'd like to ask Ian a question, 0345 6060 973. This is LBC, it's 5:16. Simon Conway has the headlines.
A serious case review is underway after a mother from southwest London was given a hospital order by a judge for killing her 3 disabled children. Israel's Prime Minister has ordered authorities to destroy the homes of the men who killed 4 people in a synagogue in Jerusalem. A British man is among the dead. The police watchdog is to investigate the conduct of 10 South Yorkshire officers over their handling of child sexual exploitation complaints in Rotherham. This is LBC. Your travel news is next.
Start building the new Shell V-Power Lego collection with 4 Ferrari cars and 2 playsets. Where will your imagination take you? Maybe you'll weave between the legs of the gigantic black cat, or make the terrifying jump over the bowl of cereal. At $1.99 each with £30 or more of Shell V-Power Nitro Plus fuels, it's time to start collecting them all. Only at Shell. At participating Shell stations while stocks last. Ends 31st of December. Terms apply. Visit shell.co.uk/Lego or see in store for more details.
I'm Chris Golds in the LBC Travel Centre. St George's Circus in Lambeth has fully reopened after an accident earlier, but there are still long queues back through Waterloo, Lambeth and Southwark, and there are queues around the Rotherhithe Tunnel in both directions as a car's broken down. Northbound queues back onto Jamaica Road. Leabridge Road in Leighton is still closed in both directions at Orient Way because of an accident which is causing queues, and the North Circular Road is slow in both directions towards Ealing Commons. And near Gatwick Airport, the A23 Airport Way is reopened westbound between the southern and northern terminals after an accident. In Berkshire on the M4 heading towards London, still a lane closed there to recover a lorry that broke down earlier between junction 12 for Theale and 11 for Reading. And in West Yorkshire on the M62, that's still closed in both directions because of a police investigation between junction 24 for the A629 and junction 22 for Rishworth Moor. And on the tubes, because of a signal failure at Edgware Road, there are problems on the District, Circle and Hammersmith and City lines, so do check before you travel. Keeping you moving, your next travel updates in 15 minutes.
LBC Travel.
With GoToMeeting. Avoid those delays by meeting online from anywhere.
Darling, what's wrong?
I missed a call. It was that big order. And when I called back, he'd already gone with another supplier.
Why? Why didn't we have e-receptionist answering and directing our calls? Avoid the horror of the missed call from just 30p a day with eReceptionist. Visit eReceptionist.co.uk for your free 30-day trial.
Free trial must be cancelled within 30 days to avoid fees.
If you run a business and you're near a computer, type the name of your company into Google now. Chances are everything you find will be good. But all it takes is one negative review and your reputation on any kind of digital and social media site can change just like that. Reputation.com can manage and improve your brand's image online to make sure potential customers find out about the good reputation you've worked so hard to build up. For a free report on your online reputation and to find out how we can help, visit Reputation.com.
We're home, Dave. She got the job.
Hey, nice one, Soph. So I get a discount if I pop in for donuts?
No, Dad.
Oh, I remember my first job. Paper round it was. Rain or shine.
Tell him about the current account, Sophie.
Oh, yeah. I'm getting a current account as well to pay my wages into. It's called Flex One. Nationwide do it. I get a debit card, I can look after my money online, and they don't charge me any fees.
No fees, eh? Sounds perfect. Where do I sign?
We don't sign. Sophie's old enough to have it in her own name.
Oh, I see. And is she old enough to start paying us rent?
I could pay you in donuts.
That works for me, love.
They say money makes the world go round, but at Nationwide, we think it's people. Which is why we've created Flex One, a current account especially for 11 to 17-year-olds, with no fees and no overdraft. It's freedom for them, with added reassurance for you. Visit nationwide.co.uk. Nationwide. On your side.
Say the first thing that comes into your mind.
Okay.
Wind.
Rain.
Ice.
Cold.
Boiler.
Problems.
Think British Gas. We'll do one-off boiler repairs with parts included. You don't even need to be a British Gas customer. Once we quote, the price is fixed. And our work's guaranteed for 12 months.
Broken.
Fixed.
British.
Gas.
Call us anytime on 0800 000 999. Conditions apply.
If you're an employer in a big or small business, like a mechanic's garage, a tree surgeon's, or a tanning salon, the government will give you up to £2,000 off your national insurance bill. It's easy. To get the cash back, just claim on your payroll. Don't miss out. For more information, visit gov.uk/employment-allowance today. Subject to conditions and eligibility.
If you're thinking of selling your car, why not let go of all the hassle that comes with it? Including those random people who turn up to test drive it with no intention of buying, and those people who come with checks that bounce way off into the distance. They know who they are. Let go of all that and sell your car quickly and easily in just 3 simple steps. 1, 2, 3 and you've sold your car in a 20-minute appointment. Just enter your reg number now at WeBuyAnyCar.com, the UK's favourite car buying service.
Ian Dale at Drive on LBC.
21 minutes past 5. One of the key policymakers at the Bank of England is joining me for this hour. It's Ian McCafferty. He's on the Monetary Policy Committee. You can watch this live at lbc.co.uk. We were talking about bankers a moment ago. Why is it, Ian, that in the United States 87 bankers have been jailed and in this country not a single one?
The answer is I don't know to that. I suspect the American practice when it comes to white-collar crime has always been more draconian. Maybe we need to take lessons from some of their practices.
Well, do we not need to take lessons from the SEC in America, which seems to be much more up for this than the Financial Conduct Authority does?
I don't think it's a question of being up for it. I don't think the Financial Conduct Authority is somehow more lenient or less keen on making things happen. I think it is that clearly the wire fraud laws that have been in the States, which have been in place for a good number of years now, are very precise and very clear and are all encapsulating. So from that point of view, it's been actually easy to catch American criminals. One of the issues, as I said earlier, is with the fair and efficient effective markets review is the questions: are our laws sufficient to cover all of these cases in terms of quite sophisticated financial shenanigans?
You see, I think a lot of people look at Mark Carney, who made the speech in Singapore this week, saying that some bankers' pay, not just bonuses, should be reclaimed in the event of clear wrongdoing. People say, well, that's fine, and that's good as far as it goes, but it doesn't go far enough. And it's not people who are just seeking revenge for revenge's sake. It's people who want justice.
I agree. And I'm personally, I'm very much in favour of such justice, and I do think we need to tighten up our rules and our laws, and I think we make sure that they do capture.
But why do you think it is over 6 years that either the Labour or the coalition governments haven't really done that to the extent that most people would have expected?
I think it's because, if there is a reason for that, it is because some of these crimes are really quite complex. They're not obvious. It's not as if somehow you've broken a window, marched into someone's house and stolen something. Fraud is always a difficult crime, whether it's financial fraud or other fraud, to prove beyond all reasonable doubt. And I think from that point of view, as the financial markets have become more complex, such frauds have been more difficult to define and therefore to legislate against. And that's what we really need to look at now.
Right, let's go back to your calls. 0345 6060 973 if you'd like to ask Ian a question. Caroline's in Harrow. Hello, Caroline.
Oh, hi, Ian. Ian, what I'd like to ask Ian is, seeing as the bank appears before the select committees from both houses on monetary policy and financial stability, how is he going to ensure that the recommendations put forward by Mark Carney goes forward?
How am I going to ensure it?
Yes.
Well, it's not my job to ensure that the recommendations that Mark Carney put forward go forward. That is the job of Parliament and of the Chancellor. So in that sense, we will make recommendations to the bank. The FCA is also make to Parliament. The FCA, as the Financial Conduct Authority, the police, as it were, of the markets and what goes on in the city, will also make recommendations. And then it's up to Parliament to legislate.
I mean, I know you steer clear of... Sorry, Caroline, I'll come back to you in 1 second. I know you steer clear of politics, but, I mean, Vince Cable has been Secretary of State for business for now 4.5 years. He made a very big play of the fact that more needed to be done to curb bankers. Do you think he personally has done enough?
I'm not going to comment specifically on Vince Cable. As you say, as in my role, I have to stay well away from individual party politics. I think that there is a lot more to do in terms of the city. A lot has already been done, so it's not as if people have been sitting on their hands idle. A lot of the things that were needed in order to shore up the banking system and prevent a recurrence of the crisis that we had in 2008 have been put into place, and that takes up a lot of legislative time and so on. So a lot of the systemic things have now been put into place. Now we're starting to look at the individual conduct, and that will require, I suspect, legislation as well.
Caroline, quick retort from you.
Yes, I just wanted to know, you said that would be the responsibility of Parliament. However, is the bank not a catalyst for these changes to happen, and why would the case or business case put forward to Parliament not be taken up? Is it because you can't do it robustly enough?
Well, as I say, I can't answer why Parliament may or may not accept the recommendations that will be made as a result of the fair and effective market review. We haven't finished that review yet, and it's being done by a number of people. It's a tripartite system between the bank and a number of other bodies and authorities. As I say, I cannot answer why Parliament may or may not take up whatever is recommended, but certainly the aim of this review is to look thoroughly at the systems and the legislation in place, the way the markets work, and if there are signs that there are gaps, and I think the latest Forex scandal suggests that there are some gaps, they will need to be filled.
Right, let's have a text from Lorna in Carshalton, who says, what did you think about the Prime Minister's comments in Australia about the world economy? Are there warning lights flashing on the dashboard? I think he wrote that in The Guardian, didn't he?
He did, and I think it's fair to say that it's central bankers such as myself are paid to worry. So in that sense, I think he's pointed out some of the concerns and the worries we do have about the world economy. It's clear that following the financial crisis, the world economy has struggled to regain the sort of growth rates that it had in the run-up to 2007-2008. In terms of individual areas, there are worries about the sustainable rate of growth in China and whether that is, we've seen the best in terms of growth rates in China prior to the crisis. In particular, there are big worries about the underlying pace of growth in the Eurozone, which is very important for the UK because it's, of course, it's our major trading partner. So I think there are some warning signs. However, what I would say is our central expectation over the next couple of years, and if you look at the IMF as well, they have a very similar scenario in their latest forecast, is that the world continues to grow. It may grow more sluggishly than we saw before the crisis, but it is expected to grow. And if anything, on current forecasts, 2015 and 2016 are expected to see slightly faster growth than we had this year. But that's not to say that there are downside risks.
But are there worries inside the bank that our economy could be blown off course by events elsewhere in the world?
We always worry whether our economy is going to be
specifically now. I mean, more than maybe earlier in the year.
I think the signs around the Eurozone in particular have given pause for thought in the sense that there were signs that the Eurozone economy was starting to pick up over the course of the first half of the year. The second half has been more disappointing. And the underlying question is that something that is going to be persistent, or is that more temporary and will
what did
disappear?
those pauses for thought garner?
Well, I think that there are big risks, that we worry about the Eurozone. My personal view is that one can overstress the downside on the Eurozone. It is going to remain in a position in which growth is very sluggish for quite some time as it puts its economic house in order. But I see no signs that it's in line for a sharp recession in the near future.
So you just wonder why the Prime Minister made these comments? It's unusual for him to speak in these terms, isn't it?
Well, I think there are risks that if things turned out badly on the world economy, given some of the precarious positions that we have, that things could knock the US recovery, the UK recovery of the sort that we've had over the last year off course.
Which,
we have to be aware of
what
that.
Gordon Brown said in 2008, and David Cameron's now adopting a similar tone. I won't ask you to get involved in that. Ian McCafferty is with us for another 15 minutes here on LBC. 0345 6060 973 if you'd like to put a question to him. I'm Ian Dale at Drive. LBC News Time, it's 5:30. Simon Conway has the news headlines.
A key policymaker at the Bank of England has told LBC there needs to be clearer legislation to catch bankers who rig foreign exchange rates.
I think there are questions about quite whether what they did is captured by existing fraud law or not, and if it isn't, then it needs to be.
Ian McCafferty sits on the bank's Monetary Policy Committee. His comments come after a series of recent banking scandals. A mother who smothered her 3 young disabled children in southwest London has been detained in hospital by a judge at the Old Bailey. 43-year-old Tanya Clarence, who was suffering depression, admitted manslaughter by diminished responsibility. A rabbi who used to live in Golders Green in North London is one of 4 people killed in an attack on a synagogue in Jerusalem. The Palestinian president Mahmoud Abbas has condemned the attack this morning by 2 Palestinian men. The Environment Department says the strain of bird flu found on a duck breeding farm is H5N8, the same one recently identified in the Netherlands and Germany. The culling of 6,000 ducks at the farm in East Yorkshire is now underway. LBC weather mostly dry tonight for London and the southeast. Some fog patches possible, lows of 5 Celsius. Most parts of the UK also becoming dry, but some rain moving into the far southwest by dawn. Tomorrow mostly dry and cloudy and highs of 11 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Simon Conway. I'm Chris Golds. In the LBC Travel Centre, St George's Circus in Lambeth has fully reopened after an accident earlier involving a bus at about 3 o'clock this afternoon. No lots of you still stuck in long queues back through Waterloo, Lambeth and Southwark, but hopefully those will be clearing soon. There are queues through the Rotherhithe Tunnel at the moment in both directions after a car broke down earlier. Northbound queues back onto Jamaica Road. Leabridge Road in Leighton, that remains closed in both directions at Orient Way because of an accident which is causing queues on the approach there. And near Gatwick Airport, the A23 is queuing westbound from the M23 towards the North Terminal roundabout after an accident closed it earlier. On the trains, Thameslink services are disrupted between Farringdon and London Bridge. That's because the train's broken down. And London Tramlink are also suspended between Sandilands and East Croydon because of a road accident at Lloyd Park. In Berkshire, on the M4 heading towards London, still a lane closed there for recovery work between junction 12 for Theale and 11 for Reading. And in West Yorkshire on the M62 in both directions, that's now open, but it is queuing in both directions from junction 24 towards junction 22. Keeping you moving in next travel updates in 15 minutes.
LBC Travel.
With GoToMeeting, helping smart businesses meet more and travel less. James O'Brien on LBC with cyberstreetwise.com.
Jamie Oliver facing some criticism for using chili pepper to discipline his daughter, and some people suggesting it's a big fuss about nothing. But if smacking is wrong, how can employing a chemical to burn your child's mouth be acceptable?
James O'Brien, weekday mornings from 10. Keep your business secure online with cyberstreetwise.com.
Have I got PPI?
The service was excellent. I signed the paperwork, sent it back, and they found out all the account numbers for me. We couldn't believe how much we got. We've now managed to build an extension on the house with the money.
Find out if you've got a payment protection insurance claim with haveigotppi.com. Text FIND to 80800.
Have I got PPI.com.
That's FIND to 80800.
It's a bit chilly in here.
The last thing you need is a broken boiler. So it's good to know that last winter, British Gas got to an average of 95% of home care customers without heating or hot water on the same day when called before 1 p.m. And when you sign up to home care before the 30th of November, you'll get 17% off. Call 0800 009 4747 or search British Gas Home Care. Conditions apply.
We're home, Dave. She got the job.
Hey, nice one, Soph. So I get a discount if I pop in for donuts?
No, Dad.
Oh, I remember my first job. Paper round it was. Rain or shine,
Tell
I'd
him
be out
about
there.
the current account, Sophie.
Oh, yeah. I'm getting a current account as well to pay my wages into. It's called Flex One, Nationwide do it. I get a debit card, I can look after my money online, and they don't charge me any fees.
No fees, eh? Sounds perfect. Where do I sign?
We don't sign. Sophie's old enough to have it in her own name.
Oh, I see. And is she old enough to start paying us rent?
I could pay you in donuts.
That works for me, love.
They say money makes the world go round, but at Nationwide, we think it's people. Which is why we've created Flex One, a current account especially for 11 to 17-year-olds, with no fees and no overdraft. It's freedom for them, with added reassurance for you. Visit nationwide.co.uk. Nationwide. On your side.
Darling, what's wrong?
It's her. I've heard her answering your phone. She's there every time I call.
Who? My e-receptionist? She just answers my business calls.
Yes, her. She's so cheap.
Yes, just 30p per day.
E-receptionist answers all your calls and diverts them so your customers speak to the right people every time, avoiding any dramas. For your free trial, go to ereceptionist.co.uk.
Ian Dale at Drive on LBC.
5:36 here on LBC. Let's get a business update from Ben Kumar at 7 Investment Management. Ben, good evening.
Good evening, Ian.
Now, news today from the Bank of England, indeed, that the UK inflation rate has risen to 1.3%.
Yes, so from 1.2% last month. I know you have Ian McCafferty in the studio, who I'm sure will be able to shed a lot more light on the exact makeup of that.
We want to hear your views too.
So apparently the price of games and toys rose and the price of three-piece suites of furniture fell. I'm not sure whether there's any independent verification of that out there. Obviously, the longer-term view is that 1.3% still below the Bank of England's target of 2%, and so interest rates expected to stay low for a while.
And how did the markets do today?
The FTSE was 0.5% higher at 6,709. The pound flat against the dollar at 156.5, and a little bit weaker against the euro, now at 125.
Ben, thank you. That's Ben Kumar at 7 Investment Management.
LBC Business.
With Lex Auto Lease. Join the vehicle leasing revolution.
And Ian McCafferty from the Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee is with us. He's actually going to stay with us till 6 because we've got so many calls coming in. We're very grateful to him for staying. You can watch us at lbc.co.uk if you're not just satisfied with listening. Let's go to some more of your calls. Ross is in Brighton. Hello, Ross.
Hello.
Hi, what's your question?
Well, I'd like to know if the Bank of England could actually put a ceiling on interest rates by using other monetary policy so that house prices, mortgages could be kept at a reasonable rate. If you had a fixed rate mortgage, it could be extended rather than at the short terms that they are at the moment.
Right. Well, in terms of fixed-rate mortgages, Ross, I have to say that's up to the lenders themselves. We do not have control, nor should we, about exactly the terms and the duration of any fixed-rate loan. So I think you need to take that up with your lender or the banks more generally. In terms of caps on interest rates, I think that would be an inefficient way of doing things. Certainly it might help you out in terms of capping your mortgage, but if we didn't use interest rates, we'd have to use some other policy which would be much more unorthodox, and that I think would cause more distortions in the system than simply using base rate. What I can say, though, I think, is what we've been trying to say to consumers and to businesses as well as to the financial markets for some considerable time now, is that it is the bank's intention, once interest rates have to start rising, that they will, our intention is that they will rise only very gradually, and that there's a very good chance that they will remain lower than you would have expected if you looked at the rates that you saw before the crisis for some considerable period. We do think that the state of the economy is such that rates can grow or rise very gradually over the coming years.
Do you think, though, there is a problem that so many people taking out mortgages now don't remember back in the 1990s when interest rates were very high, and so they're taking out mortgages thinking, well, it'll never go back to those levels again, and those of us who took out mortgages in the late 1980s, I mean, remember how nearly bankrupted we were by the interest rates going up to something like 15%, wasn't it, in 1992?
I think prudent borrowers should remember that interest rates can go up as well as down in the parlance. And I think it's also the case that the new mortgage market review regulations, which banks and as lenders have to carry out before they can grant a mortgage, do make checks as to the affordability. They have to check whether a borrower can afford to pay back the mortgage at rates some 3% above where we are at the moment. So in that sense, I think there are more constraints in the market which should prevent people from taking out loans that they really can't afford as interest rates rise.
3% doesn't sound an awful lot, but if you've got a £150,000 mortgage and suddenly the rates go up by 3%, I don't know what your monthly repayments would be, but it would be several £100 more than you would be paying at the moment.
It would, and you'd have to pass the test that you had enough income to allow for that before you would get the mortgage in the first place. But as I said at the outset of we don't expect that there will be sharp rises in interest rates on the basis of our best understanding of the economy for the moment. We're looking to raise rates very gradually once the time arrives, and that's largely to try and prevent disruption as much as we can to mortgage holders, to borrowers and to businesses.
But just going back, I mean, this links in a way to the previous question about the likelihood of another world economic collapse. If that happened, you've played all your cards, haven't you? Interest rates can't go below where they are now. You could do more quantitative easing, but I mean, there are dangers in that as well. What could the Bank of England do to rescue the economy in that situation?
Well, we could certainly use quantitative easing once again if we had to. I think at the moment, as far as the UK economy is concerned, that is an outside chance, but it's not one that we shouldn't at least consider as a contingency plan. And certainly quantitative easing has proven to work in the past. I think it works best when you're in crisis situations because it works through confidence and sentiment as well as through the banking system itself. But there's no reason why we couldn't re-employ QE were the economy to require it.
Paul's in Cambridge. Hello, Paul.
Good evening, Ian. Good evening, Mr. McCafferty. Mr. McCafferty, I'd like to ask a question on a small business matter. Some time ago, the government lent vast amounts of sums to the banks in an understanding they were going to lend that money in return to the small businesses. Could the Bank of England actually exert some pressure onto these banks to actually get their fingers outside?
Well, I think you're referring to the funding for lending scheme, which we introduced now some couple of years back, which does provide significant incentives to the banks when they lend to small and medium-sized enterprises. And I have to say that if we look at the data, gross lending to SMEs has picked up in response to that system. I think the data are quite complicated because there are a small number of banks who probably overlent in the run-up to the crisis, who are trying to run down their loan books. And of course that then means that they're not increasing their lending, they're trying to decrease it. And that distorts the data. But when we look at new lending to SMEs, that has picked up. Now, I can fully understand, I suspect you're a small businessman and you're still having difficulties with your bank.
I am indeed, yes.
And I sympathise, but I think, and it is clear that a number of banks may need to do a little more. But all I can say is, I think if you can prove that you have a very solid business case with some really good figures, and you shop around, and one of the issues I find when I talk to small businesses is people have had a relationship with one specific bank for much of their business life, and they've stuck with them, which is admirable. But at the same time, banks are acting in very different ways at the moment, given their history and their recent experience through the crisis. Some are trying to lend a lot more and move into the business sector. Others are more keen to run down their existing loan book. So I would suggest you start to shop around a little.
Okay, Paul?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go on to Simon, who is appropriately enough at bank. Simon.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Well, my question was really, in light of what's kind of gone on recently, whether, Ian, you were still of the opinion we need rate hikes, because I know that inflation is not so prominent, and you can see things slow a little bit in the economy. So, as a voter, do you think we need more rate hikes?
Well, I'm afraid because we don't publish the minutes of the most recent meeting until tomorrow, I can't tell you how I voted at the most recent
I
NPC
think we all
meeting.
know.
But as you saw, in terms of, I changed my vote for an immediate rate rise of 25 basis points in August, and that certainly continued over the September and October meetings.
Sure.
I think what I would say is that, to me, the reading on the UK economy is relatively positive. We've talked on this programme already of some of the downside risks to the global economy, and we shouldn't ignore those. But at the same time, if we look at this economy, we've had growth in excess of 3% over the last year. We've had 750,000 fall in the numbers unemployed, and employment is now at close to record levels. This economy is gradually recovering from the deep recession caused by the financial crisis. And as such, I think we do need to think about exactly how much further progress we need to see before we start slowly to normalise interest rates.
What would be the benefits of a small rate hike?
Well, I think when we set rates, I think it's worth saying that we have to set rates on the basis of how we expect the economy to be performing 18 months to 2 years ahead. That is the delay or the time over which it takes for an interest rate change to feed through fully into both output and in particular into inflation in line with our mandate. So we're trying to look at what the economy will be doing into the early part of 2016 and beyond now. And I think what we're starting to see is, as I say, with the fall in unemployment, that the economy is getting back to more normal performance. And as we saw with last month...
Even though you've got the gap with wages?
Well, we saw last month that for the first time in a number of years, wages are now starting to outstrip inflation. And there are a number of signals to suggest that as 2015 unfolds, that will continue and wages will start to rise slightly faster than they have done. And there is an issue as to whether at the current interest rate by 2016 wages will be still rising at a rate that is consistent with 2% inflation.
Simon, very quickly from you, would you like to see a rate hike?
No, I don't think I would, actually. I think that everything's under some pressure, and I think lower rates for longer and a clearer idea from the very top about what might happen next would be beneficial to us all.
OK. Simon, thank you very much for that. 0345 6060973. 15 more minutes to question Ian McCafferty from the Bank of England Monetary Policy Committee. This is LBC. It's 5:46. Simon Conway has the headlines.
A key Bank of England policymaker has told LBC he can't see the Eurozone going into a sharp recession after the Prime Minister said there were red warning lights. A serious case review is underway after a mother from southwest London was given a hospital order by a judge for killing her 3 disabled children. The cousin of a British man who was killed in an attack on a synagogue in Jerusalem says his relative only wanted peace. 3 Americans were also killed this morning. This is LBC. Your travel news is next.
Right now at QuickFit, we're offering 25% off all premium Continental, Pirelli and Goodyear tyres, but only for a limited time. So like my piano-playing friend here, you'd better be quick. It's the Better Be Quick QuickFit sale. Now on. Call, click or visit today. Terms and conditions apply. See in store for details. Can you play chopsticks? I can.
I'm Chris Colds in the LBC Travel Centre. Still got long queues back through Waterloo, Lambeth and Southwark after St George's Circus in Lambeth was closed for a couple of hours. It has really reopened now after the accident, which involved a bus, but there are still queues on the approach to St George's Circus and throughout that area. There are queues through the Rotherhithe Tunnel as well in both directions after a car broke down earlier. That's causing northbound queues back onto Jamaica Road. Leabridge Road in Leighton has just fully reopened at Orient Way after an accident, but of course there's still queues there along Amherst Park between Stamford Hill and the Leabridge roundabout. And near Gatwick Airport, the A23, there's still queues there westbound from the M23 towards the North Terminal after an accident which caused a closure earlier. On the trains, Thameslink and Southern services are disrupted between St Pancras International and Blackfriars now. That's because the train's broken down at Farringdon. And London Tramlink are still suspended between Sandilands and East Croydon because of a road accident at Lloyd Park. On the tubes, because of a signal failure at Edgware Road, the District Line has mine delays between Wimbledon and Edgware Road, and westbound between Dagenham East and Tower Hill, and mine delays on the Circle Line and on Hammersmith and the City Line between Hammersmith and Moorgate. Keeping London moving in next travel updates in 15 minutes.
LBC Travel.
With GoTo Meeting, work smarter and strike a work-life balance.
Weekday afternoons from 1 on LBC. Join Julia Hartley-Brewer with Lex Autolease.
Whether or not a disabled man in a wheelchair takes priority on public transport over a mum with a buggy. The shame I would have felt if I'd allowed that disabled man to not get on that bus. I would not have slept to this day. I would have been so mortally ashamed.
Julia Hartley-Brewer on LBC. Weekday afternoons from 1 with Lex Autolease. Join the vehicle leasing revolution.
118434, the handy number for handy numbers.
Calls cost 76 pence plus £1.53 per minute from a BT landline. Other networks vary and mobiles cost considerably more.
Better wrap these.
Right, come on, we need to get to the shop.
Ooh, another party.
Did you get the lights?
The lights.
Wish you a Merry Christmas.
You have enough to think about in the build-up to Christmas without having to shop around for the best prices. That's why at Currys PC World we check our competitors' prices every day to make sure you're getting the very best deal. And if you happen to see something you bought from us for less within 7 days, we'll refund the difference. At Currys PC World, we start with you. Full price promise terms at currys.co.uk.
At ATS Euromaster, we always try to keep our tyre prices low. But right now, we're going even lower. For a limited time only, we're offering a further £5 off per tyre across our Dunlop range when you buy online. Get an extra £5 off every Dunlop tyre online now at atseuromaster.co.uk. ATS, put us to the test. Conditions and exclusions apply.
If you're an employer in a big or small business, like a building firm, a dressmaker's, or a dog grooming salon.
No, stop, Mildred! No! Mildred, no!
The government will give you up to £2,000 off your national insurance bill. It's easy. To get the cash back, just claim on your payroll. Don't miss out. For more information, visit gov.uk/employment-allowance today. Subject to conditions and eligibility.
Tea?
Oh, love one.
Oh, by the way, isn't our mortgage deal with Nationwide nearly up?
Yes, nearly.
So we'll need to shop around for another deal then.
Or we could just stay with Nationwide.
Yeah, but if we shop around, won't we find a better rate?
Not necessarily. Nationwide save their best mortgage rates for existing customers like us, so we don't have to shop around.
Really? They do that?
Yes, they do.
OK. Good. Sorted. Fancy that.
What?
You, not wanting to go shopping.
Cheeky.
They say money makes the world go round, but at Nationwide, we think it's people. That's why we look after the customers who already have a mortgage with us. And why, if you switch your mortgage to Nationwide, you may never want to switch again. Nationwide, on your side. All mortgages are subject to your individual circumstances. Restrictions apply and you must be aged 18 or over. See nationwide.co.uk for full terms and conditions.
If you're an innovative small business owner, you could be missing out on thousands of pounds of help from the government, £46,000 on average. Why? Put simply, the government wants companies who are spending time and money improving their business to claim cash back for innovation. Rift are specialists in preparing claims for software development, design, engineering and manufacturing. To find out from Rift if your business is eligible, visit innovationgrant.co.uk. That's innovationgrant.co.uk.
Every day, more and more people decide to let go of all the hassle that comes with selling their car. Whether they're selling an Audi or an Aston, a Hummer or Honda, a Porsche or you get the picture. They know there's an easier way to sell in just 3 simple steps. So whatever car you're thinking of selling, why not enter your reg number now at WeBuyAnyCar.com, the UK's favourite car buying service.
Ian Dale at Drive on LBC.
5:53. If you go to lbc.co.uk, you can watch us as well as listen to us. Ian McCafferty is here with me until 6. Right, a couple of texts on the housing market, Ian. David in Richmond says, is Mark Carney worried about the London housing market? And Benjamin texts, I'm a 22-year-old man with a stable job and a modest enough salary to put me in a position to buy a house somewhere in the southeast, albeit not in London. £500,000 average house price. I'm incredibly worried that after purchasing a house that the housing bubble may burst. What are your thoughts and advice? Greatly appreciate your help.
Right. Well, in terms of worries about the housing market, I think we are perhaps less worried than we were earlier in the year, when it was clear that house prices were beginning to rise rapidly and there were some signs that they might get out of control. And certainly my sister committee, the Financial Policy Committee, put into place some measures to try and prevent that happening over the longer term.
And was that partly about restricting mortgages?
That was limiting the amount that banks can lend in terms of high value or high multiple mortgages in terms of the total amount of their loan book. So it doesn't stop anything, but it just means that it tends to stop the top end very high loan to value multiples or loan to income multiples. So I think what we've seen over the course of the year is some calming down. I think some of the pent-up demand that we saw late in 2013 and 14, after people had not been using the housing market for so long, has now started to fade away. And some of the mortgage market review issues do seem to have calmed the market down a bit. So prices are now rising more on an annual basis in closer to single figures than some of the slightly higher figures that we saw earlier in the year. And I think that is probably healthier. To that extent, our best expectation, and it is no more than a forecast, is that we will continue to see modest house price increases over the course of our forecast, so that house price increases running more closely in line with growth in either nominal wages or particular nominal GDP, single digits, but continued rises over that period.
So Benjamin needn't worry too much.
Well, one can never rule out shocks to the system. So, I'm not a housing advisor in that sense. I'm not licensed to do so. So I'm hesitant to give him personal advice, obviously. But I think I do think that it would take a real shock to the economy to trigger the sort of house price crash that people fear.
Right, Andrew is in Hatfield. Hello, Andrew.
Good evening, gentlemen. I think the EU issue is going to play a major factor at the next general election. And as an ordinary member of the public, I hear confusing and conflicting opinion from politicians on the economic ramifications of potential withdrawal from Europe. I was wondering if Ian could give us some independent opinion on the economic ramifications should we withdraw from Europe, and also how a central bank, the Bank of England, might prepare for this uncertainty.
Wow, we could be here till 10 o'clock on that one, Andrew. But, Ian, what would you like to say?
Well, let me start with the easy part of the question, which is preparing for such uncertainty. Clearly, at the moment, it appears that financial markets have not yet, do not have this issue at the top of their mind. Sterling markets have been relatively calm. Interest rate markets have been relatively calm, certainly relative to the run-up to the Scottish referendum, for example, where we did see some increased volatility. The bank prepared very well for the Scottish vote in terms of ensuring that the system had enough liquidity, that there were enough notes in the banks, all of those practical issues that the Bank of England is responsible for in order to ensure effective operations of the money markets either side of an uncertain event. And I think were we to see uncertainty around either an election or any form of referendum, then we would take that necessary practical action to ensure that we had fluid and functioning markets.
And of course, one consequence of this whole debate, forget the issue of should we come out or not, is that there are major international businesses now already factoring a possible referendum in 2017 into their investment plans. And as we get nearer that date, I mean, the uncertainty is going to magnify.
I think that's right. And one thing we do know is that in general, businesses do not like uncertainty. It's the one thing that they find difficult to build into their investment and output plans. And it is clear that some international businesses are raising some of the issues around the debate about European membership in terms of their long-term intentions. When I go around the country, and I go around the country a lot with the bank's agency network talking to individual British businesses, I have to say that these issues are not yet at the forefront of their minds. There are many other things that they're worried about at the moment that are perhaps more immediate. The point that the Prime Minister made about the fragility of the world economy, quite what is happening in terms of the Eurozone, our largest trading partner, and so on. So I think it is possible, it's quite likely that we will see uncertainty build as far in businessmen's minds as we get closer to the election and were a referendum to then follow as we move forward to that. At the moment, though, as I say, businessmen seem to be, it's an issue, but it's not the one most forward.
Well, that referendum referendum may or may not be in the future. What about the one that has just happened in Scotland? How much were you preparing for a yes vote in the bank?
I don't think we were preparing for either a yes or a no vote. Our responsibility around the Scottish referendum... Well, no, that's for politicians and for Parliament. It's a political issue, whether Scotland is part of the United Kingdom or operates.
But I guess there was a bit of palpable relief as to the way it went, because it was, well, the status quo is always easier to plan for, isn't it?
I don't think I would say there was even relief. Essentially, the bank stood ready to do whatever our political masters required us to do, depending on the outcome of the vote. And if the vote had gone that Scotland went independent, we would have acted as an agent alongside the politicians to ensure that happened smoothly. In the event the vote went in favour of the continuation of the United Kingdom, our role under that circumstance was to ensure that markets around the uncertainty of the vote worked effectively. And as I say, we made sure there was sufficient notes in the system, that the money markets had enough liquidity and so on, such that we didn't have dislocations.
So there wasn't a big sigh of relief?
Well, I can't speak for others, but I think as I say, my main interest was that we got through the vote without disruption in the markets.
And the big match tonight, McCafferty, is a bit Scottish. Who are you cheering for tonight?
I'm not a great football fan. Ask me about rugby and I can talk for hours.
See, there we have to disagree. Ian McCafferty, it's been a pleasure as always. Thank you very much. We'll have you back very soon, I hope. Coming up after the news and travel, we will be talking about Labour's new policy on immigration. Does it stack up? That's our question for you after 6. This is LBC. It's 6 o'clock.